Hello, it's day 107, 365 days toward racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback. Let's get right to it today. We're here talking about Black issues in America from kind of maybe a different perspective, not a popular perspective. It's not a popular issue ever in America. Uh, we want to uh, see if Blacks are doing better, doing worse, remaining the same. Uh, if there are problems, how to solve them, what's the story behind where Black people are at in America, what's working, what's not, as far as Black people in America having access, equal access uh, to the same rights, wealth, and resources as whites. And when I mean access, like on the books, we do have access. Yeah, it's illegal to prevent us from any whatever's offered to the public. We have legislation and laws concerning that, but one group faces a whole lot more encumbrances as they reach for that equality that's written down on the books. And so we're challenging the heart of man, whether America is being true to what's written down, challenging the integrity of what it means to be American. Does the color of one's skin still matter? Stick around here, you'll know my views, but I want you to think, do your own research, get your own literature and heroes and commentators on the subject and see where you land. All right, two thoughts emerge as we hear day 107, just continuing to grind it out. First thought has two parts. First part is the slave mind, is the slave conditioning still being perpetuated among Blacks, being passed on, not just among Blacks, but our environmental factors, other races and other colors applying pressure to keep Blacks mentally, especially mentally. The mind is where we begin to change. The mind, the heart, these things need to begin to change. Are Blacks motivated to change, do better, be better as a group? We've got our superstars and highlights and our Black fireworks out there, mostly in the entertainment field and industry. But for the most part, Blacks remain at a ceiling. We only improve as groups above us, socially and economically, improve. The other side of the coin, it's probably a no-brainer. You probably already guessed it. White entitlement, privilege, expectation of favor. Is that intuited to the next generation and on and on? And does that move on and find expression through educating the children and whatnot? It's interesting. I said this a lot, maybe in the past post, but it's just amazing. I sat in the same classroom with a majority white school, yet my thinking was not one of, I guess, know-how. I came out of high school believing I was on equal footing, but I graduated and sat at home, guessing that most of those kids that I was in high school with had a plan, had a direction, went on to other things. I was so messed up. I wish I had come along to myself and said, hey man, we got a lot of stuff to work on. So that's the first thought with its two parts. Second thought is a concern for financial literacy. I'm finding as I dive into some very interesting works I've stumbled onto. A guy named Robert Kiyosaki is very influential, wealthy, rich, and he has all kinds of interests going. But it's the first material on wealth that's changing my mind. You know, it's incredible. And later in the year, we'll get into it. We gotta get through this series. I gotta check our schedule since we're coming up on the third of the way through this project. But yeah, he deserves some mentions and commentary here at Racial Change. What got me started though was another man. He helped me articulate my problems, my impediments in America that were just becoming profound and needed expression, needed to be exercised, and so forth. His name is Dr. Claude Anderson. He's all over YouTube and other places. He's not a hard guy to find. I read 3 of his works, and we reference them consistently. These are probably the main sources of the YouTube post. First book I read was A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. All the texts may be more than a decade old. The message is timeless because racism is an illness that dies very hard, if at all, if ever. So wherever we're coming from out of those resources is appropriate right here in modern day 2019. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com, also the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Like I said, he's all over YouTube. He's a guy to find, Dr. Claude Anderson. Behind me, you'll see a hashtag #us2, and it's kind of black women getting together, supporting one another. Good stuff there. Black Enough, BLAGGENUF is another place, kind of a black Facebook. If you can find me here on YouTube, then you have access to the same material that I have access to. Go find your flavor and run with it. Yeah, I notice whenever I get my friends alone, I'm talking money lately. You know, not so much gospel. I have a relationship with God and stuff like that. But let's talk about what's making things work. You know, I think like God. So many of Jesus' parables talk about sowing and reaping and the economics, you know, in the kingdom. So let's have that discourse as well. You know, I hate it when I sit down with religious people. I sat down with a guy, you know, there's new churches. Well, here I go about to ramble. But new churches, great though. I go still. No denomination, more independent, and things like that. All cool. I go, I have fun, and I fellowship. Great people. So the one church out here I frequented more. I go with a friend of mine, and you know, they're recruiting me, and they're talking about all these spiritual gifts and all this stuff, but they're not telling me how it works financially. I'm sitting down with a guy. And that this particular church, the founders are like from Florida, right? I'm in Colorado, and I'm like, okay, you picked up a move, and it's like, and it sounds like, boy, they just disregarded finances, support their children, housing, and whatnot. It sounds like they just moved up and they obeyed God and they planted themselves here, and everything worked out with a brand new building, space, land, and all this stuff. So I'm sitting down with this guy and I'm asking him, like, what was the conversation like? You know, and it had to be a little more than prayer. You know, you know, hundreds of years ago, when people were close to the land, you could go from place to place, anywhere. You know how to shoot your game, start a fire, build a shelter. You can do that kind of thing. The Mormons kind of have that kind of story going on. Not so in the year 2019. So, you know, oh, he talked about God and prayer and all this stuff. And I was like, you're flat, dude. I hadn't even gotten into my financial literacy and education at that point. But I knew, like, okay, that's a nice, good motivation, great foundation, legitimate motivation, all that good stuff. Now, nuts and bolts. What was the conversation like? What's the money? Let's follow the money. Let's talk about how it happened. So I want financial literacy to be more prevalent in in Black Americans' minds. Not quick money, even not quick illegal money. I'm not talking about all that stuff. Uh, Robert Kiyosaki, he's got a couple mantras. One is education. Two, making big money. There's too many legal ways to do it. You know, if you're patient, then you're going to be on a slippery slope. But if you're patient and go through the learning experience, there's too much. You can do it legally. That's all that stuff. So I kind of catch by what's written in his books. I never met the man. Probably will never meet these great people who are doing exceptional things with my mind. I'd like to. I'm just not high on the radar yet. But I'm guessing Robert Kiyosaki and Claude Anderson are men who maintain some standards in their lives. And that's the foundation of their successes. We finished the introduction here. Interesting tangent. We take a fictional look at slave life in America, mid-1800s. Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm moving through that work. It's interesting. She's got complicated characters, intricate plots intertwined, and all that. So we check in, see how Uncle Tom and other slaves and slave masters, slave handlers are getting along. I forget where we left off, but I guess we got to get back to it. So, but this important series we're going through right now, the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Okay. Oh, so let's get into it. Need to make a correction to yesterday. I did not represent Tom McKean adequately. He was a Presbyterian. So the Presbytery church government is their focus, and that I just abbreviate for. Look up Presbyterians, and you can go into their long history and articles and stuff like that. But his religion still had no impact on slavery. Nothing. I'm just coming out of Wikipedia too, so that's we're not going to find any in-depth talks there about where they're at mentally and spiritually. Uh, further than the politics of the individual. So that's a little correction. I put it in the brief notes as well. All right, day 107, we're looking at first guy up, Arthur Middleton, born 1742, died 1787. He's from representative from South Carolina, educated in England, no surprise there. A lot of the men went abroad, studied abroad. I'm going to finish up my college degree, and I'm toying with studying abroad, trying to stretch out, spread my wings, do better. He replaced his father as a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and it's just important to know that the families of these guys, I'm noticing, we know they're not common folks. They run in political circles, influential circles. Forgot to take down, maybe his father's illness or something prevented his father from continuing to participate in that Second Continental Congress. He was captured while defending Charleston from the British in 1780. He was captured along with Thomas Heyward Jr. and Edward Rutledge. They were released on a prisoner exchange later on after the war, I think, sometime in there. Plantation owner, no religion, in South Carolina, so slavery, in those agriculturally focused states, the plantation owners owned slaves. That's how the plantation runs. So that's his, was his vocation. That's where his money was made. All that free labor being tossed up to him, and he stopped. He signed to stop British entitlement over the colonies. I'm guessing, right? These guys, they go to England, and you know how it is, like when you're born, maybe like on the wrong side of the tracks, right? They're born. The colonies is the wrong side of the ocean. I'm guessing, England proper, that's where, that's the source of colonial civilization. Anything that what's going on in the colonies needs to be managed, and he needs oversight and things like that. So I'm guessing the colonists, run into that. There's not enough adequate education in England. You need to, or in the colonies, you need to go to England to get the right education and put that on your resume. You get a thumbs up. You gotta kind of get a pass. Things are changing like that. In the information age, I don't think people care too much about that. I tell you, the present job I had, they didn't look for references, resumes. Are you a body? Able body? Can you show up? Boom, welcome. That's it. No resumes and dressing of and all that stuff. Just performance. But further back, if you had England's stamp, or some educator, you sat under some great thinker, some great mind, that opened doors for you. No different for Arthur Middleton. Nothing spectacular. The plantation owner. We're finding as we go through this, through the signers of the Declaration of Independence, that these men is probably a lot like today. Wealth is a kind of a prerequisite for politics, and because politics, it's power, it's getting, it's groups, sending a representative, but the group is getting something. This is what black folks that missed out. We missed out on in the '60s. We got tokens and symbols, and we didn't get tangible resources. We got a little, maybe some black scholarship stuff, education, and we dealt with, we got maybe our little grants and stuff, and communities infused with some resources, but we didn't get white security. We didn't get gated communities, open access to lucrative jobs, trained in entrepreneurship. Overall, we had always grinding it out, and so our politics for black folks, our votes got to count. It's got to move that political mountain in our favor, and we know that when we get some tangible, something we can hold in our hands that gives us leverage in the world. That goes back to this guy. I'm trying to quiz him about his religious move with the church to come from Florida to Colorado. What's the leverage? Did you walk here? Oh no, I drove a car. Okay, how'd you pay for the gas? Let's start there. You didn't just like Star Trek get in a transporter and come to a brand new building and have church. There's you're going to have some financial conversations about that. I didn't ask him if I'm guessing he lives in his own 2-story house with his wife, in a yard. It's like, dude, church is treating you all right, bruh. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm digressing again. But politics or power, making sure your supporters are being taken care of. Black folks aren't good at that. We're not good at that at all. What we see is all these other groups are racing ahead of us. We complain, but we're not holding those accountable that we send to represent us. That's a big problem. Not so, further back you go, you see more accountability in political circles. Where it is absent, you see some people with strong feelings and politicians running into some serious problems. Next guy up, Lewis Morris, born 1726, died 1798. Something stuck out to me. His mother died, or I don't mention this enough. Many of the men we query here have mothers that have died. High female mortality rate, especially having children. It was just very common. Just didn't have the care, the science, medicine had not, was just not at that level to support the longevity of the females. We've come a long way, and I'm glad about that, but many of these men lost their mothers early on, fathers remarried, things like that. Uh, just wanted to make a note of that, you know. So Lewis Morris, so he didn't escape that. Now it didn't say she died at childbirth for any of his siblings or anything like that. Just, you know, some illness took her. Um, for him, again, this guy's from New York, and for him, land ownership seemed to help qualify him for politics, being a judge. Um, Southern District. He was a senator of the Southern District of New York. We heard that a lot in some of these guys that have gone to prison behind Donald Trump. I'll tell you what, you can't be openly associated with uh, that much dirt and come away clean. You know what I mean? Like, there's a handful of guys wrapped up in felonies getting time, and you telling me this guy his hands are clean, you know? So yeah, they're going back and forth. You could just check your current events. Um, the Mueller report is about to come out. They've been about to go to civil war over that for the past 2 months. We're going to see what comes out. You know, it is strange. Like this guy Barr, like, you got 400 pages of commentary. So he gives 4 pages. You know, you've condensed 100 pages per page in your summary. That's, yeah, a lot of red flags with this Barr guy. And we're seeing appointees exercising presidential power out here. You know, the DC area's got their power structures are not working right. You know, my feeling is the president can appoint who he wants, but Congress, you know, that's the balance of power that the founders and framers, I think, envisioned. You know, yeah, president appoint who you want, but that person works for the people. He's not he doesn't carry your water. Okay, let's have it. Let's have those taxes too. Come on. Uh, Lewis Morris, his brother was a British general, so you know you think with this Revolutionary War. I never thought of this, but uh, you know, brothers and family members, I'm sure got into it. You know, over this thing, loyalists versus patriots, and what, you know, who's going to fight what, and all that. So his brother was a British general, and he warned Lewis not to sign the Declaration. And like I said, this was a treasonous document. These guys were committing treason. Some were imprisoned and whatnot. Like Arthur Middleton was captured. You know, some guys kind of were insulated. Some guys were in the fray. So his brother, Lewis's brother, warned him not to sign that, but Lewis went ahead and did it anyway. Another plantation owner, no religion specifically mentioned, and I say just he signed as a will, and the representative of the people was his code and responsibility around that. Very nice, important little tidbits today. Nothing spectacular. Not everybody's a superstar and all this. You know, we've got essentially common guys who are also there to sign the Declaration of Independence. About out of time. I think we talked about you. You caught me rambling, getting some other things off my chest that must have been there. Thanks for listening, tuning in. Stick around for tomorrow, and you have a great day.